Hi, welcome back. Just a quick follow-on video from my previous one, and I had a question from Lee, and he said, just to comment on the previous video, he said, what if the table can't start in cell A1? How can we solve? Simple answer to this is yes, we can. We need to name the table database. Now, you may say that's fine, but okay, if I've got a table here, it's not naming the table itself as database. So I've left this one. This one is called name. So I've not called the table database, but I call the range that the data table is currently taking up. I name that as database. And I normally do this with a small d for database. Now, the other thing to be careful of is that if I just select the name, it only selects the data body range. It doesn't select the whole table range. You must select the whole table range, otherwise it won't work properly. What will happen is your database will end up with your first row of actual data in the table coming up as the headers. So you must make sure that when you select the whole of the data in the table, not just the data body range. So you must include the headers. And the way of doing this is by putting the square brackets and then hash all to force it to do that. But you have to just build that into the code. So let's have a look at the code. And I've taken it a stage further because all I've done also is I've made another sheet with some other things on that sheet. And let's have a look at the code that I've got because I've made it loop through all the sheets. So firstly, you'll notice that I've actually named this with a sensible name. And now coming down here, the screen updating, that's still set there. Now you do have to be aware that when the user sees that form that comes up, they can still cycle through all of the entries in the form. So you're not turning off the screen updating for security, you're just turning it off for appearance so that they don't actually see it switching forms all the time. Here I'm just mentioning TBL as the list object, which is how we refer to tables. And now I'm saying loop through all of the sheets. Activate the first sheet. And now I'm going to loop through all of the TBL, which is the list objects, the tables, in the current sheet that I've got. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a name into my name manager. And it's going to be database. And the range refers to table name, which is the current table that I'm looping through, and its name concatenated together, so and all. Now this is the most important part of it. This is the bit that means it's going to work or not work, because otherwise, remember about the headers won't be included. When I say database, it's not going to recognize it properly as a correct range, because it's just going to be the wrong range basically. Active sheet show data form. So it'll be looking for a range called database or a table that starts in A1. Now, because I've specified database, it's going to use that as the preference. As soon as I've done that, as soon as I've shown the data form and the user gets a chance to do what they want on the data form, and then when they close it down, I then need to delete that name from my name manager. And the reason is because next table, we're going to do the whole thing again, and we're going to name this table's range database. So the way of doing it is if you can't have your data table starting in A1, the data range, including the headers, must be called database. Okay, that's basically it. It loops through everything, all the tables, then it loops through all the sheets, and then finally it just selects sheet 1, which is the first one in my tab order, and here it then turns back on the updating so the user can see. Now let's have a quick look at that. If I click on here, it shows the first of the data tables, so I can click close, shows the next one, and then the third one. As soon as I finish, it goes back to here. So a couple of things to be aware of. You should, wherever possible, try and start your tables at the top of a sheet. If they're data, ideally they should also be on separate sheets. having multiple tables on the same sheet can cause problems. Let me show you one potential problem. Is if a table is directly underneath another one, then there's a danger of, as this table expands, it bumping into this table and trying to overwrite it. However, have a look at this. If I just go into that last cell and press tab, as I keep pressing tab, it's going to add another row. Now here is where it used to actually overwrite and come up with an error because it would crash into this one, but now it nudges the table down. So we can now do this, but it's still not good practice. At the very least, push them over to the right so that your tables are lined up horizontally, but ideally they should be on separate tabs anyway. Okay, I hope that's been useful. I hope that answers your question, Lee. And again, if anybody wants that data, a copy of the code, if I didn't hold it up on the screen long enough, just let me know and I'll get back to you. Thank you for listening.